upgrades.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back yet again for another movie review in 2023. This one we're talking about is Scream 6. I have my co-host here, Lucas, because he is I want to say horror connoisseur, like he knows all things horror, and I don't. I am the novice noob. So to preface this with this review up front, and some of you guys probably already seen our reaction, I've never seen any of the Screams. The only thing that I've seen is the first one and the end of the first one. That is it. So when I watched this, I kind of wanted to approach it like, okay, I'm gonna watch this going in completely blind. Is this going to be enough to entice me to want to not only be a fan of this or want to go back and watch it as is? Like, is it written well? Is it intriguing? Is it entertaining? Does it have horror moments that don't feel cliche? Like, I kind of just wanted to come into that approach, and Lucas was the opposite side of that. It's more so like, okay, there's legacy with this. There's levels to this, and so I didn't even see the last one that came out with Search 5. So I don't know any of the core members. I don't know anything about anything. So Lucas, if you can, before I speak up, can you give everybody a baseline of what Scream is, and before we kind of go into this review?
A baseline of Scream or what we're getting from Scream 6?
Scream for now. Just Scream for now.
Oh, wow. That is asking a lot for their almost 30-year franchise here. But Scream is a franchise built off of the Ghostface Killer. He started in Woodsboro with Sidney Prescott in the first film, and then in the second film, and then in the third film, and then in the fourth film. But that's the whole point of the Ghostface Killer, is someone who's always different, because these are horror movies that were supposed to be at first just making fun of what the horror genre had become and building a killer that's always been just human and with no supernatural elements at all into it. And that's what Scream is. Scream is always about someone putting on this mask and becoming a killer. It's normally by wanting to interpret a killer or being inspired by a killer or by the victims itself. That's the basis of what a Scream movie should be, is that you build off of whatever's in the past, because Scream is the only horror franchise that all 6 movies are connected. Like, for growing on from 96 to now, every Scream movie is connected. It is the only horror movie franchise that's ever done that. One of the few possible franchises that ever done that for that amount of time anyway, but everything is always connected, and it always reads back to who is the Ghostface Killer in this installment. That's what you wait for. That's what you go to Scream movies to find out.
Okay, I think that's perfect. So anybody that's kind of like me, you got a brief little introduction.
If you, at this point, by Scream 6, have never seen the rest of them, at least you had to see Scream 5, because it came out during the pandemic and it was a hit. One of the few movies in the theaters at the time of the pandemic was a hit film that branched off to this, because that's why we're here at Scream 6, is because of the events of Scream 5.
Again, I'm the noob. I will take all the licks. I will take all of it, because the truth of the matter is I am now a fan. I went into this and I didn't know what was going, but I realized very quickly that it was moving. It's not like, okay, like you have like a small little pocket of information or even like references to things that have past. Like, it's like as soon as it starts to go, it does not stop. It's engaging, it's entertaining. And I started to find myself engaged with even the characters. I was kind of like, okay, they've shown me kind of where we're at and what the levels of this killer is. But what I don't know is how these characters are going to navigate this situation. So then versus introduce me personally to Sam and Trish. I think that Lucas has said that they were first showing up in the 5th one. But immediately I was kind of caught off guard. But I was like, okay, Sam is definitely hated by everybody. And she's also very traumatized. Whereas Trish is just trying to live and gauge what's going on.
Wait. Tara Tara.
Tara. Tara's just trying to be able to live past what she's dealt with. But immediately they are just brought into death, carnage, and chaos. And I personally was all for all of this. Even characters I didn't know the references to, they did a very good outliner of kind of pointing me, okay, this is who this person is. This is why this person is in the state that they're in. This is why a character like Gail, who I didn't know who Gail was. I mean, I saw the end of the first one, but I was like, she's still in here? What is going on with this? And I was like, oh, they even made her intriguing and endearing in certain levels of this. And so for me, I am now thrust into this, and I'm in love. I'm in shock that I can't believe that I've never seen any of these. But I'm excited to go back and watch it for the very first time. But Lucas, I'm gonna throw it off to you. We haven't talked about your feelings on it.
I'm about to say, yeah, we haven't talked about it. But first, let me say this. Okay. First, the quick synopsis of the film are the 4 survivors of the last brutal murders in Woodsboro leave New York for a new life. So we get Mindy, Chad, Tara, and Sam, who are the survivors of Scream 5. And they moved to New York partially to go to school and partially to escape Woodsboro. That's why this is the first film where you get Ghostface away from Woodsboro. That's the pull-in of Scream 6. So as Sam said, he didn't understand like the issues with Sam and Tara and all this other stuff. If you remember Scream 5, if you've not seen Scream 5, Sam left Tara for 5 years. And the reason she left her for 5 years is because she found out that their mom had been lying to her about who her father was. That's when in Scream 5, she finds out her father is Billy Loomis. Billy Loomis is the main killer in Scream 1. He's Sidney Prescott's boyfriend who killed Sidney Prescott's mother and went on a killing rampage. So when Sam found out that that was her father, it separated her from her family. She only came back because in part 5, Tara got attacked by Ghostface and didn't know why she was attacked by Ghostface at the beginning of the movie. She's also the first time that someone has been attacked by a killer at the beginning of a Scream movie and did not die was in Scream 5 with Tara. And they use that as a launching pad to introduce these new characters. You have Chad and Mindy, who are Randy, who died in Scream 2, but survived Scream 1 with Sidney. Those are his nieces and nephews. So this is the main principal cast of it. But as for Scream 6, this movie, it continues the rampage that you got from Scream 5. Scream 5 was extremely high octane. It was more violent than the Scream films of the past. And it fits more into the times of what a slasher film should be nowadays, where it feels a little more violent. It takes on the persona of what we've gotten out of the more recent Halloween films in a sense of violence and how violence is depicted on screen. So this one just catapults that to another level from Scream 5, which is unbelievable, ups everything up, but also manages to keep the emotional attachment between Sam and Tara, because that's the driving force of these last 2 movies are these 2 sisters and them attempting to deal with their traumas and everything that happened with them. So from that point, it matches what 5 was and just ups it an ante, which is great for this point at film 6 for you to still be able to deliver what could be at least the second best film or the third best film in the series is what I felt Scream 6 was. Like, it's better than 5. And 5 was really good, but it's possibly up there with Scream 1 in its execution. And considering this is the longest Scream movie. This is the first Scream movie to be 2 hours.
Really?
Yes, Scream is not normally this long because Scream follows the principles of horror movies, which is around that hour 30 at first, hour 30 to hour 40, maybe hour 50 if you're lucky type of thing. But this is the first Scream film to crack that 2-hour barrier, and it does it with relentlessness in it. It's not slow paced at all. So you're in it for 2 hours, but that 2 hours breezes by pretty fast. But amazingly, it manages to give you the gore and the killing that you would expect from Scream, but also still gives you a storyline that makes sense to the movie and makes sense to the franchise. Because again, as I said before, all Scream movies are connected. So this is not a situation where you're gonna get just a standalone film, but this does a good job at people like Sam, who's never seen any of them, can watch and be entertained by this movie, but yet and still be possibly lost on why you should care about these characters. Because I'm assuming that's what happened a lot. Is Sam asking questions like, well, who is this? Who is this? Why is this
Yeah.
person so important? But that's the part of knowing the connection to the film. So for people who love the franchise, this movie is close to perfect. People are coming in the door. It is going to intrigue you and want you and get you to not only care about the characters in the movie, but wonder like who the heck are all these other people that they're
Right.
introducing into this?
Right. Yeah, like I mean, for the character Mindy, I told Lucas, I was like, dude, like the way that she navigates this movie and how she
Mhm.
internalizes everything that's happening is the baseline of horror movies. And she's like, she's a horror movie connoisseur, but also a movie buff. And so she was kind of like, oh, there's a moment in this movie where they're all sitting at a bench outside and she's kind of picking everything apart. And I was like, okay, I'm starting to fall in love with this movie. But even more engaging, I was like, where does this character come from? Like, what is going on? I don't understand why I'm starting to be so immersed into this because I think partially it has to be the writing. Like they wrote it in such a way that I'm pulling stuff and I'm able to connect dots. And not just that, I'm connecting dots, but I'm like putting little threads here. Oh man, I need to go back and see how this happened. I need to go back and see like what is this trauma doing to this one
Mhm.
person? Because honestly, the character Sam, and this is weird to say, is one of the most engaging characters for me because like
Mhm.
there's a balancing act that's happening throughout this film. I can't speak for the fifth one because I haven't seen it, so I don't know. But for this film, a lot of the time she's struggling with trying to deal with everybody like throwing stuff at her emotionally and physically and also trying to survive, but also dealing with her past trauma that's still catching up to her, like it's affecting her mentally, her mental
Mhm.
deconstruction and how she's balancing. Like there's times I was like, okay, she's doing something questionable, but in a
Mhm.
situation like this it makes sense. I'm like, I kind of want her to lean another way, and I'm like, when you start having me do that immediately, I'm just I'm thrown off. And even Jenna Ortega, I loved her in Wednesday. I haven't seen anything else besides I think I've heard she's in You, but in Wednesday she can play a role very well. And with this one, I kind of was like, oh, she's gonna be this annoying. So it's like, no, like I actually dug their relationship. I actually dug her as a character. She didn't feel like a side character. If anything
Mhm.
happened to any of these characters, I would feel something. And I think that that's the thing that in the first time watching this, that I'm actually caring if somebody dies or something happens. Like every single kill, every single moment, every single laugh, cringy moment, like it all mattered. And I felt something, which is so weird in a horror movie. I don't normally feel anything for horror movies at all. I kind of like check mark, I did it. That's it.
Yep. Mhm.
But for this is so interesting. And you said it, Lucas, like this is violent. Like some
Yes.
some of these deaths, I was like,
Uh,
yo, I had to give it
extreme.
props.
Yeah, this is more violent than what you normally get from a screen film. But what's also funny is Sam describing the scene of them all sitting around talking about the movie because Sam doesn't know that happens in every Scream movie.
Really?
Oh, it's funny. That's literally the Scream monologue. It happens in every Scream movie. They sit around and do that. That is known. That is a known thing. As I told Sam before, like Mindy is a play off of Randy, who was her uncle. Her uncle was a movie buff, a horror movie buff. When he did this in the first movie, he does it perfectly as they're all sitting around the television and he goes over the rules of horror movies. And then in the second one, he goes over the rules of sequel, and then so on and so forth. The next person does it in the next film. The next person does it in the next film. Mindy did it in the fifth film, so she's just doing it again here. This is called the Scream monologue, where it sets up the potential of who the killers could be. It's something that they took away from the original that did it to make fun of horror movies and slasher movies, where you would sit around and wonder, like, wait a minute, why aren't all of them talking about who the killer could actually be?
Right.
Like it's one of those things, and they took it and made fun with it, and now the series has ran with it as a way just to engage the audience. Like, okay, we know what you're thinking. these are the people you should be concerned about. People popping up out the blue all of a sudden, you should be worried about them. People who are coming back from other movies that weren't in the last one and we don't know them, you should be worried about them. Like it's a running thing for the Scream universe. Again, this
Yeah.
is why you have to again, this is what makes Scream, and I can say it based off of this film. This is what makes Scream the greatest horror movie franchise ever made. It's because of things of this nature. Because one, it wasn't supposed to last this long. Scream was made for one movie, and it was made to make fun of horror movies, and it was made by the master of horror movies, Wes
What's
Craven.
good? Yeah.
Yeah, which is odd. And then all of a sudden, it became a trilogy, and he said that would be it. And then we got Scream 4, 15 years from the first one. And that was Wes Craven's last film was Scream 4. Yeah, also the
Interesting.
most disappointing film of the franchise in terms of box office, which is weird. But it's Scream 4 for this series is equivalent to Mission Impossible 3, where it
Mm.
may be a film that box office wise, it could be the weakest. And while it has its issues, it's the film that sets up the franchise moving
Catapults
forward.
everything moving
Yeah,
forward.
it catapults you to like, oh, okay, so maybe this is what this franchise could be moving forward. So that's
Mm.
what Scream 4 did. But the monologue thing happens in I can't wait till you can see these movies because some tells me through your eyes, you're gonna be completely amazed by the things that happen in these movies.
Yeah, I think that was the other thing is that when I realized the rules of this, right? I was like,
Mhm,
oh, okay, cool. Like anybody could be it. But then I started to realize that honestly, anybody could be the
mhm,
killer because it's not just, copycats. It's not just people out for revenge. Like these are people that are dealing with years of repressed trauma. And
mhm.
so it's kind of like, even though I'm starting to get connected with certain characters, I was like, I started questioning. I was like, you know what? I don't know. Like, even like Hayden's character, I don't know what movie she showed up in, right? But
Scream
I was
4.
like, I don't know, but I'm watching her and like now she's in a different environment, like she's trying to help, but I'm starting to question. I'm like, I don't really know who I can really trust. And I love that. I love the
Mm,
fact that even in characters, I was like, oh, absolutely, this can't be the character. This can't be Ghostface, but it could be, And I
yeah,
think that that's what's so enticing for me because, like, even though a person may not be the killer now, that doesn't mean they won't be or something to
yeah.
that nature.
Mhm.
And I think that's what's so interesting to me. I can't spoil what I mean by that, but that concept
Yeah.
alone, I'm in love
Well,
with that.
I about to say, well, anybody who knows a Scream movie know that, it's always the twist is always attempting to fool you into who the killer is. And it's
Right.
it's good to see them bring back these older characters. Gail Weathers, who's been in every Scream movie. It's always good to bring Gail back to see Gail again. We know anybody who remember 5 with the death of Dewey, you really wanted to see Gail to see how that would affect her because their whole relationship from 1 to 5 is so important to this saga. So to see Gail without him, that's something people wanted to see. To bring back Kirby, who happens to be the best friend of Jill, who was Sidney's cousin, who was the killer in Scream 4, is great because Kirby is also the movie buff. She took over the series as the person who knew everything about horror movies and rules of horror movies and things of this nature. So it's really good to
Oh,
see
so that
them.
makes sense to something I saw.
Yeah,
Okay. That
yeah.
makes a lot more sense.
It's great to see them integrate these characters back because that's something that I think Scream has done a good job of up until this film, with especially with Sidney being in every movie. But to bring back Gail, to bring back Sidney, to bring back Kirby, and these legacy characters into this new film, into these new characters to help build that connection to them. And then we also have to remember, and this is what makes it realistic when you bring back these characters. All these characters are from a small town in Woodsboro. So
Mhm.
it's not like a major city where these characters are all from New York. So how would you possibly know each other? They're
Right.
all from a small town where this killer has haunted them for almost 30 years.
Right.
And it's always haunting them as someone else picking up the killing. It's a great commentary on what happens when violence strikes small towns. And
Mm.
if someone was to ever do something like this, that it couldn't possibly go away because kids will become enthralled by it. That's the whole purpose now of this franchise, is letting you know, like, once violence hits, people can become intrigued by it, and they can take on this mask and this persona for fame more than anything. And how horrible that could be if people did that. Like, this is it. It plays on those principles a lot. It plays on the principles of thrillers. This is the first time where a horror movie truly played on like a thriller. Meaning, again, no supernatural elements. So no, it's not Michael Myers. It's not Freddy Krueger. It's not Jason. These are regular people committing these murders. I think when you take that into consideration, you understand just how well Scream has to be written for you to be intrigued and terrified by regular people in mass.
Yeah. And the last thing I just have that I gotta compliment is, well, again, you told me that this is the first time that they took place in New York, but that concept with the killer like this, because from the movie that I saw, it doesn't matter where you are, all of a sudden this Joker pops up. And like,
Yep.
it could be that you're walking down the street in the convenience store, it could be you're on a metro. Like, the fact that they're talking with this person, interacting, and all of a sudden they just pop up behind them and are running at them with a knife. That concept, putting myself in a situation, I'm in New York, all of a sudden somebody's calling me and they right behind me about to stab me. Like, I don't know what to do with that, because if I'm in my hometown or my house, I can kind of navigate that. But when you anywhere around a city like that, that's terrifying. And so I love that. Like, I love the fact that, well, I don't know if that's the case with all of them. Like, he's always taunting them. You never know where he is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
He's
if that's
always
the
taunting.
trope.
Yes.
But
That is what Ghostface does.
but in a city situation like that, bruh, like, because it's kind of like it plays on your psyche, because you gotta be always alert and always in terror, like one or the other. It's
Yeah.
either fight or flight at all times. And I think that was the interesting balance between the two sisters. Is kind of like Sam was like, I'm done, like, shoot, I'm ready, like, where you at, like, shoot, I got a taser on me, let's go. But with the other sister, she's just like, I just want to get through this. And so, yeah, man, I really was impressed by this. Even when there were like cheesy moments, they found ways of making it engaging. And I think if you're a lover of the franchise, I guess this is like right on target. But for me, if you're like me and never seen it at all, this may be your certain gateway. Like, I'd check it out. And yeah, I mean, for as far as the rating's concerned, I'm at a 9.5, dude. Like, if I go back and watch the rest and come back to this, it may come up, but I'm at a 9.5 with this. I actually really enjoyed this more than I should, honestly.
Hey,
Yeah.
this movie is everything a Scream fan would want. For a horror movie fan, this is the film that makes up for Jason Takes Manhattan. When we thought that would be the big horror in New York and be able to take a franchise to another level, and that movie disappointed by a lot, this movie used the setting of New York perfectly by still involving and making Ghostface pop out of wherever he wanted to be. Like, it really played the part that we're in a big city, but they still made it small enough where the fear became real. So this movie works wonders with the city of New York. Uh, as an overall rating, it would be about a horror movie scale. Horror movie scale would almost put this at a 10 out of 10. And the horror movie scale is, horror movies aren't rated like real movies, unfortunately, but people
Right.
rate them a little less. But so it's probably a 10 out of 10 or 9.5 or 9.5 out of 10, because it is possibly the third best movie of this series. It's a real tie between this one and the first one. The second one is still the best movie of this entire franchise, but this one is really close to it. It is really executed well. The direction is great, the plot is great, the cinematography is amazing. It's certain shots in this movie that will blow your mind that they did it in a horror movie, because these aren't things I would expect from normal horror movies.
Right. Yeah. I can't say much more than that. But I do have a question to, I guess,
Mhm.
to end this. Is Sidney an important character?
Well,
You know what? I
everybody
think
who
I'm just gonna
knows
go.
about the history of Scream, you know that there was issues about Sidney appearing in this film because of salary, and they low cut her, as Nev Campbell has said, to the point that Sidney was supposed to be in this movie. The director said they completely had to change this movie to remove Sidney from the movie and give you this movie instead. So Sidney is what's my Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween.
Okay.
She is the main character in Scream.
Okay.
Sidney Prescott is the main character. So they had to redo it after they lowballed an offer to Nev, and Nev decided not to do the film. But there's hope, because the director did say if this movie is successful, that they would love to include Sidney back into whatever may be moving forward with the franchise. So, I mean, there's still hope for Scream fans out there who are a little disappointed, a lot disappointed actually, that Sidney Prescott is not in this movie. That could turn some people off, but please go see it. I think you enjoy it even without Sidney. I think this is the film that you'll be like, okay, the Scream franchise could survive without her if necessary, because of the performance of this young, extremely talented cast.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell button. Go and check out our Last of Us reviews. Go check out our upcoming Mandalorian reviews. And I don't know what else we got coming. We got
multiple film festivals.
Yeah. South by Southwest is coming up.
A couple of big movies about to come out. Just stay in tune to the channel and check them out. And, let us know what you think. Like, subscribe, comment, whatever else we do here. Comment to make Sam watch the rest of them. This is pitiful.
Oh yeah, I will.
He has not seen them.
I'll commit to doing this. I will do a watch party for every single one of them. We may start it beginning of next week, so make sure you're already going to the description bar below and follow us on Twitch, because we'll do the watch party there. We may have giveaways. We may give away a movie for each one. I don't know.
Hey, we may give away the actual movie for each movie.
Right. That's actually a good
That'll
idea.
be the giveaway.
That'd be
the
dope.
Actual movie for each movie.
Yeah, and that'll lead up until when this releases. Okay. All right. We'll do it. All right, guys. Peace, people.
Filing out the top of the
I can see the skyline, 50 mile radius on my timeline. Ain't nothing.